ما عندكيش بطاريات اطول من كده يا مريم؟ بطاريه صعبه. احنا فوق للدرجه دي؟ اما هاتلنا بطانيه عدله بقى. قدر الفقر ده. حقيقي. فكر اه. الشكل. والله. It is very bad for me to stick my name straight. This is empty. Hi, Adam.
Hello, is Hasham?
Yes, how are you, Adam?
Pretty good in yourself? I'm
I'm
doing
very,
good.
I am very good too. Today is Friday, end of the week. I am happy.
So what's your interest in CXL? What's the main thing driving you?
What drives me?
Yes.
Good food.
Ah,
Good
I
food.
don't know if CXL tastes good though.
I like good food.
Okay.
Uh, who do you work for, Adam?
Oh, I work for Samsung.
Which one?
Samsung.
Ah, Samsung. Oh, it's a big company. I like
Yes.
Samsung. The other day, Samsung is working on memory, right? Of course.
Yeah. Oh yeah. So yeah, we memory, NAND, right? So many different. There's foundry division, many different things Samsung plays a part in.
Exactly. My cell phone is Samsung
Okay.
S20. What? S24 plus or the other one? I don't even know what it is. It is the last one. The last one. But Samsung are reliable. I like the phone. The
Good to
phone.
hear.
Yeah, very reliable. I like them.
Yeah, I'm not in that division, but I have I think A53, the mid-range one, and I'm
Ah.
very happy. You know, like the screen is good. It was relatively
Exactly.
affordable, very
Exactly.
reliable as well. Yeah, so
Yeah,
I
very
like the
reliable.
hardware.
Yeah, hardware is reliable, and also the pictures are good.
Yes, yes.
So I
So
don't really
you,
know why people go for iPhone. I don't understand it.
it's the whole package, I think, right? The software, hardware, all seamless. That's their huge advantage, I think. You know,
Yeah, but you also
yeah,
have Android. Android is used by many cell phones. It's a good
yes.
operating system. Oh, we got
So
many people coming, man. Many people. This is a popular meeting. Wow.
yes, you just read AI, AI. That's it from you. That was from you, the read.ai. Hello.
Hello. Hello. Oh, super normal AI not. What is this super normal AI note taker? I love those super normal. Super normal. And my taker is there too. So many AI note
Yes.
takers.
How does
Teach
it
them,
does it
you
work
know.
well? Do you get an
It works.
email afterwards?
Yeah,
What
yeah,
does it do?
exactly. Exactly,
Okay.
Adam. I get an email with a summary
Mm-hmm.
recording, but I do the one I have the free version of it. I don't pay money,
Okay.
so I have limited sessions. But whatever I can get for free is good.
Good morning, everybody.
Good
Good morning,
morning.
everyone.
Good
Hello,
morning.
hello,
Morning.
Manoj. How are
Hi,
you
good,
doing?
good, Hasham. Good morning.
I'm
Looks
happy
like
to
you.
see you again, man.
Yeah. I'm happy
But
to see you guys
yeah,
too.
but Manoj, you got lots of white hair. Oh man.
Looks, I have
Yeah,
some gray hair.
I
Everything is white now.
everything is even me, Manoj. Everything is white now. Wow.
Alrighty. Okay. Let's see. Let's get together on the agenda. So I have for agenda I have Nilesh is going to present. He has been working with Hoshik on CXL for AI. Nilesh is here, I guess. Yeah, I can see Nilesh. Then we'll work through work sims update if there are any for this time. Um, any other agenda items that anybody wants to bring up?
Yeah, I think one was the Micron update from last week. Is there anything else remaining that need to be actually planned in the upcoming reviews? Is the question for Micron team. If we have Vishal,
Right. Let me just.
I
Are
somehow
there
thought
any
that
fun?
they had a bit more to share.
I thought we covered the full presentation. Let me check. Is Vishal or anybody from Micron team here today?
Besides the presentation they had, yeah.
Okay.
I-
Okay. Let's wait for somebody to join from Micron and see. But I didn't think. Let me see. Oh, by the way, I did use AI summary that Bijan has enabled on all the meetings, and it's surprisingly not quite good, actually. It's much better than what I could capture.
It's a fun
Let me,
toy. Yeah.
yeah, it's
it's a
pretty
good
cool.
toy, good
I mean,
tool. Yeah.
I didn't go through the whole thing just to check if there was any misrepresentation. That's the only thing. But
The
it's
only
pretty
thing I
sweet.
notice is sometimes it compresses, like if two or three people are talking about one topic, it might
Uh-huh.
attribute it to one person instead of all three,
Yeah,
I see.
it's pretty good. Pretty good.
Hey,
Uh,
Manoj, the
yeah,
one item I had for your call out for
yeah.
any other items is that I do, the OCP Foundation does want to encourage you guys to have to be able to have a face-to-face workshop.
Okay.
And so we're willing to help support logistically or whatever. So if you guys would consider that for 2025 face-to-face,
Yeah,
had a very good one last year. It was very good.
Mhm.
So if there's something that we can do to help organize it or whatever, logistically,
absolutely.
we're
We can plan that for sure. We can target again. I know we want to get people to come for the regional summits or Europe EMA summit but then that doesn't work out for everybody all the time. So we normally just like to do something face to face. We call that take day, but we can make that as a workshops. And there is so much good material coming in,
I think,
and a lot of
yeah, my
discussions come out much better.
recommendation, yeah, my recommendation is do what you did last time, but maybe add a workshop element to it where, everyone just goes in the whiteboard and, just goes and cusses and discusses and comes out with some answers on things that we're stuck on or maybe that we haven't made progress on. And then also to have the tech day, you know what I mean?
That'd be
Yeah,
great.
yeah.
I think I would like to encourage that as well and suggest that we could
Yeah,
have
that's good.
remote connections instead of bringing, things. We can have remote connections so we can actually, share and show difficulties or some anomalies that we're running into in our labs and stuff and discuss with each other if in an open forum type solution. So open evaluation of some ideas and solutions.
Okay, yeah, we can do that. I think that's a good something. Let's pick it. Maybe we can identify some approximate timeline for that, because Meta will be glad to support it again on our side. Unless anybody else wants to support it, fine with that too. Bijana, I would love to work with you to understand how we can work with OCP Foundation to make it some event that is going out through OCP rather than just going within this group and coming as a Meta invitation.
Yeah.
Yeah, we can work that out, and any logistical support that we can get from OCP Foundation, of course, will be awesome. And maybe we can decide the timeline, and then if anybody else wants to raise their hand for supporting the workshop, that would be awesome too. I think that's a great suggestion.
One more item I'd like to add is to have the multi-headed meetings that we discussed to start meeting regularly on that maybe next year. We need to probably schedule that and see what we're going to do in terms of what time and what date works for the participants. And there was a proposal also from CMAC on some additional efforts on CLA. So let's leave some time to discuss that if possible.
Yeah. I'm just taking down, by the way.
Yes, on that CLA aspect, I really would like to try using this concept as a seed point for more open discussion, more open participation from many companies with the true spirit of open compute project. So it could be CLA based, so that things are taken care of legally, but it could also be open, and I think we have the right tools now.
Yeah.
Hey, CMAC, to that point, the foundation has adopted this feedback CLA, and it's very lightweight. And the whole point of it was that it allows, and you're familiar with it. I'm just kind of informing everyone that it allows everyone to kind of provide review comments and make kind of contributions or hear things without having any IP issues between the parties. And so it's very lightweight, and it might be very useful for something like this too.
Yeah, that's awesome. We can see how much we can get to all of this today, and I think these are all good discussion and important. Time in 2025 and get proposals, bro.
And Manoj,
Okay.
for a suggestion on
Yeah.
the shop, it'd be great if there was kind of a menu of items that you would like for contributors to fill in. Perhaps that's another just a topic for everyone to openly discuss on another call, but just wanted to plant that seed that I think people are willing to contribute. We're just not sure how or
Good
what.
point. Yeah.
So, yeah.
Good point. Let's get a minute. Is Samir online? Let me see. Samir had a good suggestion also. Let me just bring up his email that he had sent me.
Yeah, I don't see Samir.
Okay. Yeah, he wanted to. Samir is not here, but he had a suggestion for potentially for us to consider various other things. There are for as we start building up the memory systems, especially from system perspective, there are multiple components also that come into the consideration, and those are also a lot of discussions to that extent. So he had questions about what low latency timers and cables, any redundancy features from connectivity issues, adapters, etc. Is that something that we should bring it up for the discussion here? He's not here right now but he thinks that it is very important as we start bringing new technology to the market, like CXL or any other memory expansion solutions that we may think of. So it will be good for a discussion. It was his suggestion.
Yeah,
Not
that's
here,
a very
but
good
would
one.
love. I think it's a good
Yeah.
point. This does take us into some area that we have not done, but I think as Mohammed brought up the multi-headed device and the digital contribution from that, it does, I think, kind of open up an opportunity for us to bring a lot of those things that I think perhaps, Michael, to your point, I think we can start bringing in, open up those menu items for those discussions also in there. So I will bring up that when Samir is back next week. Pankaj?
So there are two things, Manoj, that we need to pay attention to. One is the idea that UA-Link will likely be the successor of NV-Link, and CXL in devices is established. So how will these bridge, and what role will DPUs play? So I've been working on this and would like some discussion, structured discussion on this topic as time permits. These are future-looking topics. The other is you and I have been looking at sort of the past of collective communication. How did these guys first come up with the collective communication metaphors that we have today? Almost 45 years later, nothing has changed. Everybody has collective communication library now as the primary software interface into at-scale infrastructure. But there has been no major interface change for almost 45 years since I used to teach this stuff at IIT. So what do we need when the infrastructure becomes asymmetric, such as we have memory nodes with some compute in them? And what role will DPUs play, similar to what Sharp, based on NVIDIA DPUs, played in reduction primitives? So in the open world, what will that look like? So the broad investigation I'm launching at Ohio State in this area is called asymmetric collective and communication objects. Three ideas in this. One is remove the symmetry assumption from collectives. Second, that don't focus so much on communication and data movement only. With the possibility of data gravity in fabric attached memory, leaving things in memory is a good option. So how do we, respect data gravity when we are doing like Adam optimizer tensors and such things? And third, quickly, is the idea that by having self-contained objects in that memory, we can actually have devices operate some of the work of collectives, like navigating graphs and indices, instead of having hosts and GPUs do it, which they do poorly. So I have a proper presentation with diagrams on this. At some point in time, we should go here. Yeah.
Okay. Fred has a point, I think. I'm hearing somebody. Okay. I think these are all good discussion, Pankaj.
I'll second Pankaj's suggestion. I think the timing is really good to have this conversation.
Yeah.
I have a quick question, Pankaj, on this topic. When you're saying this is in conjunction with, say, UAL or UEC, or you had something else in mind, just to get the right context?
I think you guys will have to figure that out. These days, I am an academic and a startup founder. So I have two ways I approach this, Durgesh. One is
Okay,
that
thanks.
I'm willing to
Yeah.
do the research and kind of looking to do some proposals funded from a research point of view. Second is the startup is building software as we demonstrated in the Innovation Village. And we would just like to plan for the next year Innovation Village or next opportunity to properly have 500,000 GPUs talk to 10,000 devices, which is how, in OCP, we should be thinking about this. So
that makes
it's like
sense.
the GPUs will not have CXL coming out of them. So how will all these things talk? That's the big question, Durgesh.
That makes sense. I'm just giving you background that given I worked at NVIDIA Sharp, I started looking at it for UAL, even if it does not make in 1.0 spec, especially from MIP side, this was very interesting. So I'll ping you offline, but thank you for bringing this up. This is very important.
So Durgesh, since you've looked at both of these, I'm going to make an assertion and tell me how far I am. I'm thinking that a lot of things we talk about are layered architecture. The physical layer of an interconnect, even the link layer coming on top of it, might not have much to do with the high-level orchestration and transaction layers that you guys are talking about. So the fact that you're talking about collectives in a particular device that is aggregating things and such should be a constant, let's call it. That concept needs to be done. Now, underneath that, if somebody is doing it using NVLink or UA-Link or CXL or such, it's downstream from the work that you guys are doing. Does that make sense?
That's a fair comment because then it's scalable. Currently, given I was looking more NVLink and bringing in UA-Link, so it was more focused on that. But the idea which you gave makes a lot more sense to make it more generic.
Right. And exactly, I think for this team, since we're talking about openness in multiple, we need to allow in a modular fashion different plumbing. Other assertions I've had in the past is that software guys need hardware. Once we give software guys some hardware, a lot of software guys come and based on that particular hardware, think about techniques. But those techniques now has been done in software have gained much momentum that from then on, hardware will have to follow that. So I will encourage that we keep talking about standardization and software that drives standardization on hardware.
It's a very good suggestion, CMAC. Thank you. I definitely fully aligned.
I think this is a long discussion, Manoj. So
yeah,
let's table it and
let's
up.
plan for that. So I would like to offer, and anybody who wants to bring up more discussion to start off. Actually, I would like to start with a scale-up fabric challenges for the future. I can present it in January on January 10th. I can bring in there. We can start from the high level because I think the options are increasing there, or there are multiple options, and I would love to get. Durgesh has thoughts in this, so Durgesh perhaps would love to hear from you also, and we can have the discussion. This is just something that at least I can come from the requirement side or the challenges side, what we see on the scale of fabric as this menu options continue to expand in this space.
Yeah, sounds good.
I see Samir. Samir, will add up your suggestions for discussion also about various connectivity options for low latency timers for future discussion.
Yeah.
After cables, and this is actually a very important aspect as we start looking to the scale-up discussion. I think the cable lengths and types of cables is a really crucial thing that we face. So we'll bring that redundancy features.
Manoj, I totally agree. The scale-up is becoming a bigger problem, and we should look at from interconnect, the protocol, everything.
Yes.
Yeah, this is something people or industry always thinks it's a low-hanging fruit, but that becomes the bottleneck most of the time.
I agree. Completely agree. In fact, that is, this cable length itself is a topic for many, many meetings, in my opinion, especially in the scale-up domain. And this is where we are driving a lot of complexities in the design. Okay. All right, so we have a bunch of things to talk about. Let's. Why don't we start from the top again? And Nilesh has a presentation on CXL Power. We'll start from there, and then try to knock off as many as we can today. All right, I'll stop sharing. Nilesh.
Yeah, thanks, Manoj. So yeah, folks, today I'm presenting actually on behalf of Hoshik Kim from SK Hynix, and of course Matthew is online. But where this stems from is we had the the panel discussion at OCP Global, and some questions came up. Actually, Hoshik brought up some questions, and he wanted us to really, as a community, think about at least from their perspective, what they are seeing in terms of CXL for AI. And so what I'm about to present is kind of Hoshik's thoughts on what they are seeing in the market and how the community can come in, weigh in. And the goal of this discussion is actually to kind of have the community participate, weigh in, and collectively gather thoughts on how where we stand today and how can we accelerate and kind of promote the deployment of these interconnects for AI. So that's the vein. It's meant to be a discussion more than just a presentation. So, but let me share my screen and let me know if you can see the screen. Sorry, I'm sharing from my phone, so hope it's not too bad. Is that?
Yeah, that's good.
Is that good enough?
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Yeah.
All right. So. Okay, so yeah, that's why I put down the key topic is scaling CXL adoption and what challenges at least Hoshik and team are seeing from a memory manufacturer's perspective, right? So that's the kind of the important distinction. Of course, in the community, there are many perspectives. You have the end users, the hyperscalers, memory manufacturers, controller manufacturers, IP vendors, all these perspectives, but this is from the memory manufacturer's perspective. So the key points, at least that Hoshik brought up, is number one is the market size of CXL. From their perspective, they're not seeing a credible path to meaningful volume deployment. And there are definitely some limited niche use cases where CXL seems to make sense, but there is no killer app clearly identified. And the whole promise of CXL, or at least one of the promises, is to achieve cost reduction. There seem to be simpler alternatives to achieve that. And then, of course, kind of the holy grail of CXL, which is the pooled solutions, at least what they are hearing from some major hyperscalers, is there's very limited gains and they've got a clear thumbs down. So that's the first challenge that they are seeing. And then the second thing is the feedback they're receiving from data center architects that let's assume there are some benefits from some apps that will emerge, but then software changes are required to really leverage the gains. And that is expensive for maybe not the biggest corporations, but maybe the ones in between. And the other thing is, out the gate, there does not seem to be an immediate CapEx benefit. So by purchasing the CXL infrastructure, maybe there are gains later on, but at least out the door, that seems to be one of the limiting factor. And then the next bullet point, which is it's all about AI right now. And the thing is, what is the CXL story for AI? That's extremely unclear. Even inference these days seems to be running on GPU-based servers. And the question is CXL really a viable third tier after the GPU attached memory and CPU attached memory and then the CXL? Is that really a compelling solution, or is that a fit, especially when you have things like GPU direct, where data goes straight from storage to the GPU memory? And is memory standing still an issue? And of course, from the memory manufacturer perspective, I think the hyperscale use case for CXL, at least initially, is meant to be a reuse of memory that has already been purchased. So really, what's in it for the memory manufacturers if there is no net new purchase targeted with CXL? So that's where kind of the summary is the call to action to the community. And of course, seeking in the vein of seeking feedback and actually gathering some more thoughts from the community is the goal is to collectively address the challenges as outlined and then create a win-win scenario across the ecosystem. So it shouldn't be that some participants gain and then for others there is really nothing in it by deploying CXL. Let me stop here for a minute and maybe Matthew, maybe you might want to add if you want to add some more comments.
Yeah, this is Matthew. Thanks for your introduction, Nilesh. And I think that those facts are pretty reliable, and we really need to think about those challenges for going forward. But in my personal opinion, I think that one critical issue is the third CXL memory tier required for GPU Direct. I think that we have CXL 3.1 spec like peer-to-peer direct memory access. It is really valuable feature to direct CXL to the GPU connection. So I think that those type of CXL advanced features will leverage the many possibilities for the direct memory attached solution for the GPU side. So yeah, so I think that we needed to think about those type of new features finally solve this type of challenges in the near future. Yeah, this is my comment.
Thanks, Matthew. All right, so we got a bunch of hands up, so we'll use hands. Good discussion here. Mohammed, you go first.
Yeah, I think there are a lot of good points that are being expressed here, and I think they're worth each one of them significant amount of time to address in terms of where are we today in the evolutionary phase of an interface like CXL. The NVMe did not happen overnight. It took a long time before it became useful, and it took volume. It took a lot of patience. But regardless, I think they're all great points that need to be addressed one by one in a longer session. And I think it would be great if we can do it face-to-face in the next proposed meeting. But it is something that's on everybody's mind, that the CapEx equation, the maturity of the initiators that are available today and how immature they are in aspects of the evolution of where we are in the spec versus where we are in the hardware. I think that where people are sometimes impatient in terms of the expectation on leveraging their investment right away. So that's all.
Yeah. Yeah. It seems I lost my hand when I spoke before, so I'm going to put myself back in queue, Pankaj, if you don't mind.
No, I don't mind.
Okay. So one thing which I want to say, first of all, this is great open discussion. I think these are key aspects of question, as Mohammed also pointed out. One thing to say that I feel is that we really need to look at what the use case has been asking for. And I think from the get-go, what we are looking for is a new tier of memory, which is a capacity memory, somewhere between the high performance memory and a storage, somewhere in between, which basically puts that expectation of what are the CapEx benefits expected out of the total solution. And it's not an easy way to get there. Frankly, DDR4 reuse that it's there at the bottom, I think would love to have more discussion on that. But that is one of the ways people have looked for getting into the capacity use case and achieve the CapEx benefits. There could be more alternatives. that could be that we may not know, and people may come out with the memory technologies. But I think it is critical to get to enable that, because the TCO matters, especially for the use cases. It does have its volume deployment ramp happening, at least from Meta perspective. We see that memory servers, we do see the advantages of it. And we can have a lot more discussion, as I think Grant put out there in the discussion. What are the software challenges that we think, because this group is specifically targeted to make sure that we can make seamless enablement of software. So we would love to see that discussion also going forward. As far as the AI use cases, I think this is an ongoing discussion, especially for some of the fabric discussions we have, but also where exactly GPUs need memory and how much they need and what's the kind of benefit. It will come back to the same discussion that general purpose compute have, except that actually the TCO percentage dependency on memory is different for different use cases, for general purpose compute versus AI servers, and hence the impact of it. So general purpose compute is where I think CXL is making inroads first. This is where I think it has the most attractive TCO impact if the solution attracts that. So let me pause there. I know Pankaj lost it. Sorry, go ahead. Was there any comment? I think Pankaj, you lost your slot also, but I know you are in the next in the queue, and then Grant.
No, let me quickly address some of these from my point of view. I think that we know that GP's, the general purpose compute side, we focused on latency tolerance as the main approach. HPC and AI are outright rejecting latency tolerance as a viable alternative. They just will not work with high latency memory. So the value prop of CXL has to be different. Economically, the strongest value proposition of CXL comes from type 2 devices and potential reuse of old GPUs, in my opinion. And this is something, as you look at what Microsoft did for Splitwise and the discussions I had with Samir at FMS this year, the things we are trying to do for computational memory, the first thing that you could use as computational memory is old GPUs. So I'm having this discussion with Department of Energy. I'm also having this discussion with some of the hyperscalers. I think that while at first it will look like a negative to the memory vendors, but you have to think about why would somebody adopt a technology. So first you have to think about the benefit to the person who has a problem. So along that line, I have had discussions with founders of Snowflake and other large companies that use a lot of memory in SaaS applications. So the big benefit for SaaS applications from something like CXL and disaggregated memory comes from the use of ephemeral compute. So, again, what we focused in GP use case was 8 to 10% savings from pooled memory instead of attaching memory directly to node and avoiding stranding, right? That's the essence of the benefit that we have projected so far from TPP and other things. When you see from the benefit of Snowflake, say, running a 1,000-node cluster, that benefit pales in comparison to what would happen if you separate state of analytics applications and put it in memory nodes and flex up and down compute nodes in proportion to the amount of query load. So if they could shut down the compute and quickly at low friction restart that compute, when you do the cost analysis in detail for somebody who is consuming infrastructure as a service for SaaS applications, that benefit is the most profound benefit to somebody like Salesforce or Snowflake, or even smaller startup. I actually talked to one of the founders of Postmates and Productive yesterday, and he validated this also. Okay, so let me last address the AI problem, because in AI, I mentioned GPU reuse is the first sort of CapEx type benefit for the customer. But the second benefit is very interesting. It has to do with large and long context. So to get the quality of enterprise AI and commercial AI up, we will need even longer context. We are at, for like code pilots and all, we are at 1 million to 1.5 million tokens to have a Git repository incorporated as context. in the code pilots in the generative AI side. I have been, working in context aware computing for about 15 years and built 4 context engines in the past commercially, and I work in this area. So my view is that we will be getting soon to 10 million context tokens. And if you think about, where do we keep these tokens? We keep it in KV cache. So the discussion that Samir started with his Microsoft colleagues, we have not come back and thought about, well, what will the future flow of prompt engineering and decoration of prompts with context tokens look like? Right now, it's a very, direct forward flow. We add the tokens that we think are context, we feed it to the GPU works on it. It has to use whatever tokens we attached in the forward flow. But future, active learning, as the GPU goes to work on its KV cache, it will figure out what additional memory it needs. So the outside large memory of context will need to get a lot closer to the GPU. So we should be focusing on pipelining the CXL memory feed to the GPU, not in the GDS sense or GIDS sense as NVIDIA is working on right now, but much finer pipelining as Amin Vadat from Google has outlined in his Stanford keynote and other places. So this is again a long discussion. I just wanted to make these comments because these are really critical topics, and let me shut up. Sorry about the long comment, guys.
No, that's great. Grant?
Yeah, I think we should probably move on to the next slide. I think the thing that I would recommend is that since Nilesh is presenting this material on the behalf of Hoshik, we should probably try to organize a meeting where Hoshik can come and talk to us a little bit more, and maybe we cannot be a firing squad when he shows up, so that he can explain his position, because I think that this is important to understand, right? Because this team, this group, obviously we understand where this can go and we see the benefits of it. And I think it's very important for individuals like Hoshik and the direction that they take their companies to understand where we see this going so that things can be moved forward, right?
Yeah, that totally makes sense. But I didn't realize actually Nilesh had more slides. But why don't we go through? I know there are 3 hands. Let's cover them quickly. Samir, Siamak, and then Mohammed. But then let's get back to the presentation also. Samir, go ahead.
Yeah, so my comment on the general purpose compute is that CXL memory expansion is happening. There is no doubt about that. And our view is, after expansion, what's next, right? And think about pooling. If you can bring pooling with as much close latency as possible to the direct attached CXL memory, I think that has a lot of advantages. Just to give you an example, if we achieve that, then we don't have to worry about putting memory inside the server. We can have one SKU of servers, and then memory is sitting somewhere outside, and we can dynamically configure a server as per application demands. So that is very much valid. And as Mohammed was saying, we need patience. This is not going to happen overnight. And we need patience, and we need to believe, and we need to keep investing in and keep marching. Now, as far as the GPU things are concerned, I think looking at a CPU connected CXL memory, and there are going to be CPUs behind every GPUs, and how we can leverage that path, sharing a CXL memory behind CPUs with GPU. So I think that's a viable path. And now if you compare that with UA-Link, right? UA-Link, people are talking about 1 microsecond latency, total latency, right? That is achievable if you think about a CPU connected CXL memory and then GPU accesses it through the CPU head node, right? We can meet that 1 microsecond target. So there are some other ways of looking at it. And if you look at UA-Link now and compare that with CXL path, right? It is another 3 years. And CXL is already here. And we can make a lot of good progress with what is available today.
Yeah. Good point, Samir. Thank you. CMAC?
I share a number of concepts that the guys talked about already. So let me just try to summarize in maybe one question for the team. Of course, there needs to be value for people to adopt a new technology. Trying to shoehorn a technology where it doesn't belong is not fair to anybody. So the question, who would like to have cold dead fish?
I thought that was sushi. Yeah.
Yeah, good point. Very good point.
Yeah, my point is very similar to everything that was said. I just want to go back and summarize as well. If you really think about the reason CXL was created in the beginning, it was about two main issues, right? There you got the memory wall issue, that the growth of processing is not, the growth of memory bandwidth and capacity is not keeping up with the growth of processing count of cores and capabilities. And the second problem was stranded memory. The memory expansion is, as Samir said, is taken off slowly, but it's definitely finding a niche and finding its room, and it will grow. But that only addresses the memory wall issue. The stranded memory issue, as Samir also said it, you still need to wait for a low latency pooling multi-headed capability that is for as low latency as expansion to be able to be meaningful in the solution. So those two coming together, those are the primary things that will enable CXL. I think what was added in terms of GPU capabilities and additional computational memory, et cetera, is all great stuff that will follow. If we try to do everything at the beginning, we will have a hard time, right? But it is coming. It just needs persistence. Nothing happens quickly.
Yeah, I know you're absolutely. I think it's an important. I really like the timeliness of this because this is December. This is the time we start looking back and think about things and what we want to do. But this is really important to be honest with yourself and really look at where and how we are trying to address the problem. And to CMX point, okay, who would have that specific product that you have and what's exactly the right way to present it to the market. All right, now let's move to the next slide. I think Samir, I think your hand is up, but I think we covered it.
Yeah, thanks. No, this is great feedback, and it seems like maybe the face-to-face, to break down, that would be a good venue to maybe schedule this. So I think at least I heard that from Grant and from Mohammed. So, no, that's great. So then this is the next slide is more like a breakdown since we were talking about the use cases. So that's some more detail that Oshik broke it down into saying, okay, we are trying to solve a problem. I think someone mentioned, memory wall problem, memory stranding. So really it's solve the problem the best way, right? And so instead of, I think, Samak, you also said, we don't want to force fit something just because, it's not a, we're not looking to, we have a solution, so we need to find a problem. So the point was in the direct attached memory, there are three vectors, right? Capacity, cost, and use case. And in the capacity, the question is, what broad deployment scenarios require more memory than is already available? And there might be simpler alternatives to increase the memory capacity. Similarly, in the cost vector, just a DDR4 reuse at least may not be interesting to a memory manufacturer, but maybe some hybrid solution might be. But then the question is it really compelling if we are trying to achieve the cost reduction? And then the use case, I won't dwell too much on it. We spoke about it. But the question is it significant enough to then drive this technology into like high volume to be interesting. And then the second column, the memory pooling, Samir, to your point, yeah, of course, the Pond paper showed some great analysis and about 7% savings. But then the question is that significant to the broad market? And given that you have 8 to 16 hosts sharing, less than a terabyte of memory, is this interesting given the cost that will be added? And especially because there is no instant cost savings that would have to unfold over time. So that makes the TCO justification hard. And the third use case, which is memory sharing. So yeah, there I believe what Kaushik was saying is there are several usage scenarios showing benefits, but again, the cost savings may be limited, and there really is no agreed upon TCO model that everyone can align to and nod the head saying, yeah, this makes sense. Same thing in the use case, the multi-host sharing, those things are definitely interesting, the points Pankaj was making, and also the KV cache sharing, the S-LoRa and the distributed inferencing, definitely interesting. But the question or the feedback that Kaushik was receiving from, I guess, his engagements with multiple hyperscalers and multiple data center architects is, hey, this requires major software overhaul. It's not free, as in it's not like, oh, let's install CXL and now boom, we are ready to go. So anyway, so that was kind of breaking it out in terms of the use cases to be very specific, right, and not hand wavy. And again, the call to action out here is to develop these use cases more concretely. I think last week we saw a great presentation from the AMD Micron side, some use cases driving up to 32 GB per core. But yeah, we need more of those and show the path to the broad market. And the demand needs to be clear, to at least from the memory vendor perspective. So I'll stop there. But I think, yeah, those were kind of the second level click down on the high level summary on the first page.
Vikrant?
Yeah, I think a couple of points on this chart or this table, right? It seems like the lens in which we are looking at the value proposition is making it very limited. It's looking at either we look at capacity gains or efficiency or cost gains, and I feel like that's limiting the lens in which we should look at the overall benefit. In my world, like when we are looking at use cases or workloads, there is a notion of how much capacity can we repurpose for workloads, because we co-locate, and that's where the whole containerization and repurposing the compute infrastructure for your workloads efficiently means that we need to look at how much does your capacity cost at a given point of time and how much workload can you fit. So it's not just either or in my mind, and that's the way it's coming across in this particular slide, which I slightly disagree. I think we have to look at it more holistically from a TCO model. Yes, we need that to figure out the overall cost and how much throughput are you getting for that capacity, and how is it costing you less in that context. So I feel like looking at it in that context, or in the cost and capacity together, might make the use case more compelling. And that's how we have been looking at for the white papers as well. This makes it look like either it's a capacity play or a cost play, and I think it's both in the way you run your workloads in hyperscalers.
Yeah, good point, Vikrant. In fact, I wanted to kind of maybe stress the point Vikrant is making, and I think the point that Siamak had made also, that I think the use case or at least the pain point that we have talked about, it's clear that we will say that actually for general purpose computing, memory is a significant part of TCO, and we want to make sure that we address it, not necessarily just a dollar per gig cost or specifically from that perspective, but overall cluster reduction, cluster cost reduction. Whether the solutions come with a DDR4 kind of a reuse or any kind of hybrid, I think that needs to be demonstrated for the use cases. To Vikrant's point, this is precisely where we are going out and putting out the benchmarks and the blueprints for the recipes. and we want to make sure that that is openly available, so these solutions can be demonstrated for its values. I know we already have started seeing the similar work on the compression part of it, and I think compression is making great progress in the discussions in various customer engagements, I'm sure. So I think that's actually an example of saying that, how this is helping. We have to keep on pushing. To Sameer's point, general purpose computing CXL is a fact. It's happening. We are deploying, everybody's deploying. We are demonstrating it in the OCP. We had solid representations in the Innovation Village, which talked about how software can allow us to bridge the gap. So I think those things exist. Now, going beyond that, how do we really demonstrate further values of memory pooling and sharing? Of course, that's going to be the discussion that will start. But I think the immediate focus still is on the direct attached memory, I think. And I think the use cases exist. It will be really good to have discussion also from memory vendors' perspective. I would really love to hear about it also.
I think somebody said, maybe it was Manoj, we need to be clear and brutal with facts.
Yeah.
This is a multifaceted opportunity, let me call it, or challenge. And we come together as representatives of many different companies, collaborating, competing, and helping each other in different ways. There are different points of view from the consumer of the technology versus supplier of the technology. Consumers would like to get more things and pay less for them, and suppliers would like to do the opposite. And here comes the technology, and we put things where they belong, then it works.
Yeah, I agree. Pankaj?
So very quickly, I think that if we are doing this discussion on the AI side without including NVIDIA in the discussion. I have said previously the meeting I had with Rob as they joined, CXL OCP, as they joined OCP, was constructive, but we haven't been able to translate that into work group participation. Now, NVIDIA is public with their own memory hierarchy development efforts. They're largely doing it in open source and in research papers, and we don't discuss them enough in this group. So 2 years ago, they did BAM with NAND and GPU HBM. This last year, they did GMT, which included, like Durgesh was saying, CPU attached memory. And then this last week, they published the next thing after GDS, which is GIDS. If you try to think about what is NVIDIA trying to do, because they are the 100-pound gorilla in the room that you commercial guys can't talk about, but me as professor, I'm free to talk about. So what they are doing is they are looking at how do we take out the limitation of CPU threads in handling very large scale IO and remote memory access. And this idea that Sameer was putting out that, let us kind of try to push CXL forward as CPU attached and then bringing that into GPU. It's convenient in the short term, I agree with Sameer. But long term, this is fighting the direction that NVIDIA themselves is putting forward. They are more interested in GPU initiated as direction. So I think technically what we need to do here is have this debate properly. We are not having this debate properly is the point. Let me make one final point, which is on the GP side, the work that we did initially showed low benefit, but a little bit of academic work we have been doing at UCSC with Pune Satyamiku is one of the students, and my student Alan is starting to work with her on more judicious placement using objects rather than page at a time or cache line at a time. And Andrew Quinn, who is professor at UCSC, and myself, we had a CRSS seminar. And we believe that we can push up the level of benefit that general purpose compute is saying by taking care of promotion and demotion in a better way. Instead of one cache line or one page at a time becoming hot and then evicted one at a time, if we do bulk promotion, bulk eviction, and more judicious placement of memory objects, we expect to see bigger benefit. This is not proven, but this is the belief that we have in academia in some circles.
Okay, that makes sense. Totally good points. Mohammed and Grant.
Yeah, so I think a lot has been said. It really, but I want to pick up on what CMX said in terms of supplier versus consumer. And in reality, suppliers are not benefiting from memory expansion if it's being used as DDR4 at this point, right? So the focus should be on the next stage of evolution, which is memory pooling, and as Pankaj said, on acceleration level, and how do you get into adding value with the best class of MRDIMM for bandwidth and capacity and expansion of selling, you know, the serving the provider versus the consumer a little more, right? And balancing the equation. The CXL is not just created for this single instance in time of DDR4 redeployment. It needs to be for the future. It needs to be as minimally impactful to the software and the drivers initially, and then we can start adding and getting more benefits. But you know, to say that so far it hasn't taken off, we should just, you know, get disappointed and stop. I think it's kind of losing the opportunity of the future very, very clearly to me, that we would lose that opportunity and other things will come in to replace it. But we have at least a 4-year heads up over other technologies that are going to be proposed or being proposed. And I think we should just move in the direction of the future and start planning outside of what the DDR4 expansion is.
Yeah. By the way, I'm just chiming in a little bit. We have 4 minutes. I'm wondering, Nilesh, do you have more slides that we want to cover? Just want to get a sense.
No, that was
that's
it.
okay. All right. Okay, fine.
No, that was it. Thanks.
Okay, Grant, go ahead.
Yeah, I put it in the chat too. I just wanted to chime in on what Vikram was talking about, the larger infrastructure savings, right? When you talk about core stranding, like as these CPUs get higher and higher core counts, the actual memory bandwidth per core is actually turning terrible. Like the latency is great, right? Nobody's arguing about the latency, but like the actual bandwidth per core is getting pretty terrible, and people are buying more servers just simply because their memory bandwidth is starved to their CPU for their general purpose workloads. And with the CXL technology, you can add a significant amount of bandwidth to those cores, assuming that it's used properly. And I think that maybe that message is sort of lost in some of this too, is that like you're overbuying servers because just like how GPUs are a choke point with HBM, CPUs are kind of becoming a choke point with the DDR interface for like the lion's share of CPU workloads, right? Running VPSs, running containers, running virtual machines, crap like that. Like you've got cores that are sitting idle because you've got a few threads that are consuming most of the memory bandwidth, and the rest of them are just kind of fighting from the sides.
Yeah, makes sense.
It's just boring, which is why people don't want to talk about it.
No, it is important discussion, and I think power plays into it, TCO plays into it, and what actually people are into trade off. Sorry, I didn't mean to. Just Samek, you're next.
Just piggybacking on what Mohammed said, and maybe support some of that, and maybe challenge a portion of it. I don't think this concept is zero-sum game. The fact that, for example, DDR4 expansion is useful to consumers and customers, I think we should all acknowledge and encourage and develop solutions for it. Having done that, then you can add value, bring it to DDR5 and bring it to DDR6 later. The fact that, I mean, Manoj and others have contributed to OCP a spec on how to make DDR4 successful using CXL. But in addition, they've added other things. Well, do compression on it, do something else. Well, the compression, when it is running on DDR4 controller, And once it is debugged and everybody likes it, well, you can use it somewhere else too. Adding computation elements, even if you develop something for DDR4 now, satisfy a customer's need, we all kind of bow to the customer, right? Once they're happy with it, then you can bring in value in other areas. Debugging, plumbing, qualification, security, all of those things are inherent to anything we do anyway, and we need vehicles to test them out, qualify them, and then we will bring new topics. So that's a value add on top of bare minimum requirements.
I think we're in agreement, CMX. Sorry to jump in without a hand here, but my biggest concern is to see us just limiting our focus to the initial deployment of expansion and then not having the continuation. So I think what you said is correct. My other concern is that the Intels of the world and the AMD of the world, if they stop optimizing and incorporating the next optimization for CXL, we will all lose, right? So we just need to keep that interest there so that people are investing in the initiator piece of it, which will enable us all, as well as the GPU side.
But guys, we are at our Brian. I'll let you have a last word here, just to chime in and just say that this seems like a great topic. This seems to be a good one. Perhaps we should try our workshop on also, and I did kick off the year. But we'll see. We'll figure out the date in the next meeting. Brian, let me.
Yeah, I just had a question, and you're close to this too, Manoj. Is we're focused on this long-term thing, but does it help? Would it help to have some sort of update from the JetX side with respect to 40.7 and 45.7 of what they're doing in the near term, just kind of bound some of the near-term discussion so that we can find some sort of middle ground for the long term versus what's happening in the near term? Do you think that an update from, say, Jordan Shin would be helpful in this forum?
It's a very good point. You're asking for what is the long-term roadmap for JEDEC? Is that what you're asking?
JEDEC, yeah, with respect to their, the controller side thing with respect to CXL. I just suggest, does it make sense? And you're
bringing up a topic close to my heart. But JEDEC is, and I participate in JEDEC discussions also. Many of the future-looking discussions cannot be brought up into the open forum because they are inside closed discussion forums in JEDEC. Having said that, there is a need for some kind of a long-term roadmap that external companies can get together and put together, not necessarily promised from JEDEC. I don't have a great solution, but I think this is something that as system vendors or end users for system solutions, we look for this too. But it is something that is difficult to get. I think we can perhaps have a discussion on this next time. I would really love to see how this can be achieved, if there is a way for us to achieve that.
And it might even just be awareness of there are, for those of I'm sure many PR are aware, but maybe others are not aware of the 40.7 and the 40 -7 and 45.7 specs that are out there already. And just understanding what JEDEC's doing, because they're more implementation focused, right?
But in general, I think it is something good to, for example, if I wanted to say project, okay, where is the DDR speeds going, the capacity is going, power budgets going, just kind of a no promise, but just projections aren't there. In case of, for example, in Ethernet Alliance basically projects that thing, not IEEE, while IEEE defines the standards and they will talk about it only when it is there. There's nothing that memory that I am aware of. Would love to see what that could be, because then we can talk about, okay, where those roadmaps are going, how we are enabling newer technologies to fill the gaps in there. But that's more of my wish list there. But I think, Brian, your point is great. Let's figure out what we can do there. Guys, we are 3 minutes overdue. I know a bunch of items that we could not get to today, we'll get to next week, OCP Foundation workshops, etc. I'm going to be off for next 2 weeks. I'll work with Reddy and Samir and everybody else from the teams to make sure that we can continue to have these meetings. So I won't see you till next year. So in that time, happy holidays, Merry Christmas, and Happy New Year in my absence. But I'm sure the meetings will continue for next week.
All right. Thanks all
All right,
for the great
everyone.
discussion.
Thank you.
here.
Happy New
Okay,
Year.
Thank you.
Bye.
Hey,
Bye.
Happy New Year.
Bye-bye.
Thanks
Thank
so
you,
much.
guys. Bye.
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 Thanks, Nilesh. Yeah.